Womp womp womp.
Hey guys, so I've finally gotten around to reviewing The Witcher 3. I still haven't finished the game, but it's taken me so long to get this review out, and part of me just doesn't want my Witcher 3 experience to end, so I thought I'd better actually get my review out to you now, because I'm going to be playing this for a long time to come. And after having played well over 100 hours of this game, I think I'm probably in a good place to review it now. So taking into consideration how long the game actually is and how much there is to do in it, I'm going to try and keep this review as short as possible, because I could go on forever about this. So first things first, I've got to start with the world in general. The Witcher 3 is huge, and I know that was apparent from all of the promotional material that came out before the game was released, but it's only when you actually get into it and realise how big it actually is and how dense it is, how full of stuff it is, that it becomes so impressive. Now, when the game started, I did get a little bit concerned, because you start in a kind of a, still, reasonably sized area, but it's kind of enclosed, and you can't actually travel from that place to any of the other areas that you can actually explore. You kind of get invisible barriers turning you around and telling you that you've, reached the end of the world. So I was a little bit concerned to begin with, until I travelled to the other areas. And I know CD Projekt Red said that it was completely open world, fully explorable, you could travel anywhere. I think they said without loading screens. That's not entirely true. It is set up in a similar kind of way to which Dragon Age Inquisition was set up. That being, there are a few separate areas, and at some points when you want to travel between them, you do have to kind of fast travel, and there will be loading screens. You can't just, get on your horse and ride straight from one area to another area, which is a little disappointing, but those individual areas are larger than the areas that you had in a game like Inquisition. So there's still loads to do. So, a little disappointing initially, but once I got over that, there's so much to appreciate in these worlds. The world is so well realised as well. Every character, every NPC you come across in the world feels real, feels like, they're getting on with their own life, and that when you go away, they carry on. And the world carries on living. It doesn't just kind of, switch on when you turn up in a certain area. And the same goes for the actual story itself, not just the main story, all of the other little stories that go on around the main campaign. Every story feels like you're making a little bit of a difference in the overall world, even to the extent that you will be randomly exploring and you will come across the consequence of a decision you have made hours ago in some quest in another part of the game. And that is so important in making you feel like everything you do has, its own consequences and its own effects on the overall world. And I've mentioned before that it's quite dense, and I'm a bit of a completionist when it comes to open world games. I like making sure I visited every icon and done everything I possibly can, and there's loads to do. It will take you forever to explore every single little icon that you discover on the map, and there are things that aren't on the map that you just stumble across as well. So all of that is fantastic. And the overall storyline as well, I really enjoyed. Some people have been complaining that it's not quite as, epic. It's not on such a grand scale as maybe some other games' main campaign lines are, but I enjoyed it. It had enough heart in it to keep me interested and to keep me going. Graphics-wise, I know there was some debate over whether the game was downgraded or not, and CD Projekt Red came out and said that they hadn't downgraded it, they just kind of adjusted it so that it ran well across whatever platform you were playing it on, which is fair enough, I suppose, but there's no doubting that the game does not look as good as it did in the first reveal trailer, which is disappointing because it looked fantastic in those initial trailers, and we're you kind of expect games to really kind of be able to look as good as that nowadays. But it feels like even now we've moved on to new consoles and PCs are still getting more and more powerful, the games aren't really, they're not catching up quite as fast as I would have hoped. But that's just a general comment about the current generation of, games and hardware. But the game still looks fantastic. It still looks really nice. It's still one of those games that makes you stop every now and then and just look around in awe at the surroundings. The character models are, for the most part, not too bad. Kind of believable. You have the occasional believable expression, they show some emotion, which compared to some games, I'm looking at you, Bethesda, is, not always up there. And I mean, some of the characters do look a bit stilted, but the main characters, for the most part, look quite well and convey emotion reasonably well. And for a game of this size, to have such high level of detail in most of the characters, that's still quite impressive, so well done there. Now gameplay-wise, I think I mentioned in my preview that it's not too bad. It's not too bad. It's underwhelmed me in some places and overwhelmed me in other places. So I'll start with the kind of the general gameplay, so traversing the world and combat, all of that. I'll get one thing out of the way initially. The horse play, if I can put it like that, is really annoying. I didn't really enjoy running around on Roach, the horse that Geralt rides around in this game. It was really annoying. To be honest, there aren't many games I've played where they've done mounted traversal well. Even Red Dead Redemption, which, you know, a lot of people praised for its horse gameplay, kind of got on my nerves a little bit. I don't know why they can't do it. It's just, it feels jilted, it feels a little annoying. He doesn't, well, in The Witcher 3, Roach doesn't always go exactly where you want him to go, and he's not very responsive. So yeah, a little annoying, so a lot of the time I just ended up running around on foot. Probably isn't what the developers were after, but that's just what I ended up doing. And when you are actually playing as Geralt, you do play as Ciri in this game as well, but when you're playing as Geralt, it feels reasonably responsive. Combat-wise, it does kind of boil down to dodge, attack, dodge, attack. You might throw in a couple of signs here or there, which tend to make more of a difference against some of the larger enemies, some of the monsters, and less of a difference against some of the human fodder you might come across in the world. And this is the first game, really, which has really gotten me into alchemy and crafting. Usually that's something I kind of skip, just because, you know, I haven't got time or I can't be bothered. But in The Witcher 3, I don't know, maybe it was down to how in-depth the world is and how immersive it is. But I really felt like alchemy and crafting were something worth my while, something that I should put some time into. So I did. I put a lot of time into alchemy and crafting, and I think it's safe to say it made a huge difference. The game does encourage you to go and, you know, prepare different oils to apply to your blades for specific monsters. All of these different little things you can do to kind of improve your chances and improve your stats a little bit. And they do make a difference. And I found it really satisfying going around and preparing all of these different things I'd need for specific quests and battles. And I really enjoyed that. And I also really enjoyed upgrading Geralt with skill points, get a few various skill trees. Pretty par for the course now in a lot of video games, not just open world games, skill trees. Not all of them were necessarily quite as exciting as some of the special abilities you might get in a lot of other games, but they made me feel a little bit more powerful, and it had its uses. What I will say about all of that progression and upgrading is that I found, to begin with, I was having to be very careful what I fought, who I fought, and it was a challenge. I mean, that first Griffin fight I was in no way prepared for, and that was challenging. But I'd say, you know, after I'd been in the game for a fair few hours, and I'd started collecting potions and upgrading myself, there was quite a severe leap from what was quite a challenging opening to what became fairly straightforward. I did find myself very, very overpowered very quickly. Now, part of that might be down to just how the game is. You know, an open world game, you can either go straight for the main campaign, in which case you might not be particularly well leveled up, so it might be quite challenging for you, or you can go off and do every side quest before you can come back, and by the time you come back, the main quest hasn't leveled up with you, so it can be quite easy. So that's, I feel, more of a problem just with the genre rather than the game itself, but I did find it a little simple as it got further on. The one thing I should mention is the fact that there is not just land traversal in this game, but water traversal. You can sail a boat, you can swim underwater. There's a lot going on in the seas around the land that you're exploring. Although, to be honest, I wasn't particularly drawn to the sea and all the content there was there, simply because the swimming is really annoying. I put it up there with how annoying it was to ride the horse around. It was so frustrating. You can't really do much underwater in terms of combat, but there are still enemies there. All you can really do is you pull out a crossbow and fire off a few bolts. It seemed like it could have maybe been slightly better implemented. And again, the same as with the horse gameplay, developers seem to find it hard to do swimming right. And again, it was a little bit iffy here, but still kudos to the amount of extra content there was, even when you're done with everything on land. One of the other big things everyone was talking about was Gwent, which is the turn-based card game built into The Witcher 3. which is huge. You know, it's a fully fledged card game in its own right. But to be honest, that's not 100% my bag. I did play it a little bit, but I, for the most part, just left it alone. So that's there as well. If you're into that kind of thing, fair enough. I hear it's very good, and I kind of enjoyed the little bits that I did play of it, but I avoided that for the most part. Maybe I'll get into that later on after I've finished everything else. We'll see. So I have rambled on a bit more than I hoped I would, but there is so much to talk about in this game that I feel like I've barely covered, 20% of what I could be talking about in this game. So I may make a more in-depth review later on, but for now, to sum up, The Witcher 3 is amazing. If you love open world games, if you love the fantasy setting, if you love strong characters and immersive storylines, and if you want a world that reacts to everything you do in it, if you simply want a completely in-depth experience that you can just jump into and spend hours and hours in, The Witcher 3 is the perfect game for that. I've already spent so many hours in this game, and they're still yet to bring out DLC, which is supposed to add even more gameplay. So I can see myself playing this for a long time to come. The Witcher 3 is one of the best open-world role-playing games ever made.
Fortunately, her husband explained no medic would help the child, and he took the babe and placed it before the flame of the eternal fire.
Hi guys, thanks for watching. If you enjoyed the video, remember to like, comment and subscribe. All that stuff really does help me out, and I'll hopefully see you next time on the Mews.